Hello, everyone. Welcome to the festival and this screening of the 20th Century, directed by Matthew Rankin. This is part of our Future Present program, which is our spotlight on the best of Canadian independent cinema. The 20th Century is, I guarantee you, unlike anything else you will see at this festival, unlike anything you'll see this year, maybe unlike anything you've ever seen. Matthew Rankin, the director, has already amassed a very impressive body of work as a short-form filmmaker, but this is his first feature. Actually won the award for Best Canadian First Feature at TIFF, where it had its world premiere. Stylistically, it's astonishing. Visually, it's really, really incredible. It's hilarious, but I think underneath its surface, it's also a ecstatic and searing dismantling of national identity, and that's something I think we can talk about after the film. But first, to say a few words, Matthew Rankin.
Thank you, Adam. I'm just so overwhelmed to see so many Mackenzie King fans here tonight. Thank you for coming. This movie is, about Mackenzie King. If you don't know who that is, feel free to bathe in the blue light of Wikipedia as you watch the film. But he was the prime minister for a while, and this is sort of my retelling of his youth. And I hope that you like it. It's, it's a very maximalist, unbridled, overwhelming, dense piece. And maybe never in your lives will you see something as nightmarishly Canadian as this. So I hope you like it, and let me know what you think. I'll be back at the end of the show, and I'd love to answer your questions. And if you're too shy to ask a question and you see me on the street or something, please come up and say hello. I'll be here till Tuesday, and I'll be wearing the same clothes, so you'll see me around. So thanks, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Please welcome back Matthew Rankin.
I'd really like to introduce one of the intrepid producers of the film. I'd like her to stand next to me and protect me, Menaik Raoul.
Maybe we can simply start from the beginning, the genesis of this film and why William Lyon Mackenzie King.
Yeah, I read his journal. He was a compulsive diarist his whole life, and I am too. I keep a very intense journal, and for everyone who keeps a journal, you know what a melodramatic document this is when you read back the journal you kept as a younger person. It's full of all sorts of ludicrous emotions and overheated outpourings and this kind of stuff. And I read the youthful journal of Mackenzie King. It really reminded me of my own journal, but particularly his kind of worst expression, his self-pity and his pettiness and, his sort of fixations and vanity. And I just saw so much of myself in that. That was kind of the genesis of it. And I also, of course, saw him as a prism through which I could, sort of make fun of Canada.
And from a producer's perspective, I mean, it's a rather unusual approach to that kind of material. What was it like getting involved?
It's a journey. It's Matthew Rankin. VIFF Film used to do a movie, crazy movie, and Matthew Rankin fits with what we do. So, yeah, it's a journey. We did the, yeah. What about, do you want to talk about our studio time?
Sure. Yeah, it's...
Let's talk about the art department.
Oh yeah, so yeah, well it was all shot entirely in studio, and it was all builds, as you might have guessed. The whole idea was that Canada should look really fake in this world, and it was all sort of about getting into mischief with artifice and stuff like that. So it was really, really intense kind of art department, and the art department was there like 24/7. I don't think the art director slept at any point. And it was really a fight. I compare this film, my own observation of producing this film is like relaunching the Hindenburg, knowing full well that it's going to explode, but doing so with the sort of foolhardy confidence that the explosion of the Hindenburg will in some weird way herald in a glorious new age of travel by Zeppelin.
Now, I didn't major in history, but I think you take a couple liberties in the film with what actually happened. Could you talk about what interests you in taking that approach, that irreverent approach to politics and history?
Sort of, like the movement between fact and fiction, this kind of thing. Yeah, it's well, I think of this film as like a nightmare that Mackenzie King might have had in 1899. It is a reprocessing of his life. All the characters in the film, really except for just one, are people that he actually encountered and knew and were in his life. And much like in a dream, they're kind of reprocessed through this oniric prism. And the idea behind that was to sort of try to get into like the subconscious. I was trying to kind of like plumb the subconscious of Canada, and sort of look at what might be perverse and creepy lying beneath its edifice.
Yeah, you have these competing identities within King himself, the sort of mythologized, projected identity, and then the seedy underbelly of it, the id, I suppose.
Yeah, it's well, that's it. That's the interesting thing about his journal. I mean, he's a very outward. He presented himself entirely outwardly as this very moderate, kind of boring person who was, inoffensive and there's a great Frank Scott poem about Mackenzie King, and I really like it. The final lines of it are such a piss take. He says. It's dead. Yeah, so the final lines of the poem are, "Let us raise up a temple to the cult of mediocrity. Do nothing by halves that can be done by quarters." And, I feel like, that is sort of even right now like Canadian politics, right? So yeah, but what I like about Mackenzie King is that I feel like he incarnates a lot about what Canada is. There's this sort of surface reality that is very inoffensive and maybe even a little bit sweet and maybe kind of boring, and but there's this sort of undersurface that is perhaps more perverse and sinister, and and so it's about sort of playing sort of walking a line between those two.
Any mentions of boots or cactuses in his diary?
Well, I had to fill in a few blanks with my own fantasies.
Any questions in the audience? Please raise your hand. In the back, go ahead.
Hi. Well, first off, it was an amazing movie. Thank you so much for screening it.
Thank you.
I had a question that I was curious about, maybe the writing process or dealing with actors. I sort of had this wonderful struggle while watching the movie and sort of separating the obvious political and social commentary with the narrative and the characters that I really sort of fell in love with. I wonder how you balance that as a writer and as a director.
How did I balance it? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember writing a script. I think at a certain point I drew a script. I presume there was a script.
There was one.
When I was researching it, I guess I remember I was reading in the microfiche. I spent a lot of time in the archive reading his diary, and I would sort of read it for a long time, then I'd fall asleep, and then I'd wake up and I couldn't quite remember if I had dreamt something or if I had in fact read it. And then at a certain point that just sort of kind of became synthesized. And it just became this sort of dreamlike web. But yeah, I'm not really sure if does that answer your question? I'm not really sure about that. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Could you talk about how you designed the different landscapes? I love how Vancouver was chopped down trees.
Clear cut, yeah.
So yeah, can you talk about how you chose that design and aesthetic?
Yeah. Well, I was really inspired by like a bunch of abstractionist, like geometric abstractionist painters in Canada, especially like Lauren Harris, the best known one, Group of Seven, York Wilson, who's a wonderful geometrist, and a Winnipeg painter called Simon Hughes. And those three all have kind of a common approach of like representing the natural world as this kind of almost architectural construction. And I was really inspired by that. I really wanted Canada to look really fake. And I sort of wanted the viewer to be confronted by the artifice at all times. And that was sort of the conceit of the film, is sort of this thought about maybe Canada just being this little self-pleasuring bedtime story that we tell ourselves. And you know, so the natural world is fake for that reason, but it was also an approach to filmmaking. And here's where, you know, I really kind of am inspired by my Winnipeg masters, John Pays, Guy Madden, many others, in the idea of getting into mischief with artifice and making the challenges of making a film kind of creating an aesthetic virtue out of artifice, really embracing it. And it allowed me to work on an epic scale with a really kind of bargain basement, you know, Dollarama budget. Most of the set was built with stuff I found at Dollarama.
To elaborate on that question, could you talk specifically a little bit more about how you represent different regions of Canada in the film and their relationship together?
Yeah. Well, of course, all people from Winnipeg, I think all Winnipeg artists have a little bit of a sort of friendly competition about who can make Winnipeg look weirder. And there's you know, always trying to like one-up each other with that in our own ways. So yeah, I wanted Winnipeg to just really like be a dark pit. You know, that's where I'm from, and I think that's one of the things I love about Winnipeg, is that it's this weird place, right? I think that's why so much outsider art has emerged out of that. And then Quebec. I really wanted Quebec to be like the center of all good in this film, because, you know, I feel like in the two solitudes, we don't really have access to the best expression of each other. You know, like I feel like Quebecers don't have really much access to the best expression of what the rest of Canada is, and vice versa. And in fact, they have no interest in the best expression of each other. You know, they're very interested in the worst expression of each other. And, you know, we're always trying to say, well, this other one is, you know, intolerant and horrible, and, you know. So I really wanted, because I knew this film would be in English, and it would mainly be seen in, you know, English-speaking Canada. So I wanted Quebec to be like, really just so beautiful and amazing, like it was this meditative state of just absolute goodness. And I was hoping that would just irritate people.
More questions? Yep, go ahead.
A few years ago, I was at the Mackenzie King Home Museum place in Gatineau there, and it was to me beautiful in its nature, but just another mythology and artifice in some ways competing with what you've just done. I'm wondering, how do you think the folks, organizations that put that together will react, and whether they'll open a little exhibit on next to his office?
Oh, wouldn't that be sweet? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. We could, you know, put the cactus in his bedroom and... Yeah, I don't know. Well, see, that's the thing. Like, that's part of the piss take of this thing, is sort of playing with these official mythologies. Like, you know, yeah, the national historic sites and, you know, the heritage minutes, Murdoch Mysteries, Anne of Green Gables, you know, all this sort of kind of nauseatingly sentimental Canadiana that is there to just tell you that everything is great about where you live. And, you know, I feel like we have no shortage of that kind of stuff in Canada. Like, we have no shortage of like films and, you know, installations and, you know, artifacts that are there to tell you that everything is perfect and everything's fine. So yeah, so this is, you know, a deliberate attempt to subvert. So I don't know what they think. You know, I actually work for the national parks at the moment, and I suspect when they see this, I'll probably get fired.
You seem so critical
Do I plan to vote? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to vote now, isn't it? It's really hard. Yes, I will vote. Yeah, for sure I'll vote. It's hard to vote, but I'll do it. Yeah, no, it's sort of one of those things. Yeah, we're sort of this movie's a little bit about how the world is dividing into radical binaries, and those are stressing me out. I admit that.
Why the aspect ratio?
Well, I love squares. I love the square, and I wanted it to really kind of be like a golden Hollywood melodrama. And for me, that is a square frame.
This sort of follows on. Did you shoot part of it in Super 8?
There's a very small section in Super 8. Yeah, there's like a propaganda sequence in black and white, and that we shot on Super 8, yeah.
If you showed the film to King, what do you think he would say you got correct?
Yeah, well, his mother's good looks. That was one of those things that I thought I dreamt, but actually it was true. Because I was watching it a little while when we showed it at the premiere, and this thing where he buys his mother undergarments and she says that she'll model them for him. And I thought, that must be something I dreamt. But then I thought, no, I think that's real. So then I went back into my, books, and that actually did happen. So he would say that, yes, okay, he would have to admit that that actually took place.
We have time for just one last question. Let's go to the balcony. Which Prime Minister do you want to make a film about next?
It would have to be Brian Mulroney.
Do you have anything to add, or is that the... No. All right. Well, thank you so much for staying for the Q&A. Thank you for being with us here in Vancouver.